Hi, Kris. Thanks for speaking with us tonight. I wanted to start. I guess I really should start with your shirt. The shirts that you and the team wore. I probably should have asked the players this as well, but I kind of forgot, so that's on me. But if you wanted to maybe sum up the team's perspective, that the gun violence situation, I think would be relating to the shirts today.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard for me to comment on the team's perspective really because it's one of those things where I will bring it up in the sense of we're there to support. We have resources to support if people are stressed or people are angry or they're feeling helpless, that we're there to support them and just make sure that they're not going through it alone, because whatever it is that we're dealing with, there's, I don't know, are we up to 20 families now, 21 families now that are significantly more affected by it than we are? And it's not to make light of anyone's feelings here, but yeah, I think it's obviously a terrible situation. It's obviously a situation that people have to take a hard look at. And by people, I mean politicians that are supposed to represent us, lobbyists, people who put money into these things and who miss the bigger picture of the fact that I don't really care who you are. I don't really care what side you stand on. I don't really care what your background is. I would hope that as a decent human being, you would believe that children deserve the right to go to school without fear. And that clearly is not on the mind of some people. And I don't even know what to say to that, because that's, again, I feel like that should be a basic tenet of humanity, that if you want to have a positive society, if you want to have an educated society that is at some level supposed to be self-governing, then education is a big part of that. And so taking away money for education, taking away money for mental health treatment, taking away a child's ability to go to school safely, I don't understand how you can come out on any side but the fact that children everywhere should be safe from that. And it's, from myself, who is a cis white male who's relatively got an easier time in life than a lot of America. I would be in LA when I was coaching, and we would go to schools and there are bars and gates and barbed wire fences and stuff around some of these high schools that we had to play games at. And I just remember being struck by it. Like, how could you possibly attempt to learn everything in a way where, like, you're open to learning, you have a freedom to explore, you have a freedom to ask questions, you have freedom in general, when you're walking into this? And this is all over the place. I remember standing there before one of the games and going, how does anyone, like, this is such a travesty. How does anyone go to school? And so I see people who are saying, they're making the argument like, let's lock down schools more. Well, that doesn't create an environment where people feel safe to exist or safe to learn. And if we're going to have a positive, educated society, then I think those kinds of things need to be taken into account. I think those should be paramount, that education should be protected as a basic tenet. And so it's difficult to have empathy for people with a viewpoint that refuses to acknowledge this. It's difficult to have empathy for people who are completely willing to overlook this. And, you know, at least from my standpoint, that's what this is about. I think there's so much that goes into needing to understand that change starts on a local level. And that, you know, getting involved in community work of any kind, of building stronger communities, will hopefully lead to, I guess, just, you know, having more positive representatives in office who are actually care about their constituents and the well-being of all of them. And, you know, it's very, very easy to throw people under the bus in terms of elected politicians and people who work for the government. And I think that that's a shame, because I've met people who work for the government, and I know people who work for the government. And to some degree, I know some politicians, and I know that there's a tremendous amount of nobility there. And so I think it's unfair to lump them all together, but I do think it's pretty clear that there is a faction of America that is completely willing to overlook, I don't know. I don't know what the youngest victim was, but it doesn't really matter. They should be safe to go to school. They should be safe to live their lives. I think, you know, throughout the history of the world, we're at a place where I guess the ability for a child to survive is at its best point ever. And I think we see things like this that are starting to push up against that. And if we're not willing to take a long, hard look at that, then I don't really know where to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand completely. I guess I kind of want to leave the option with you after, you know, it's such a heavy subject to talk about the game. If you feel up to it, I could ask a couple about that, but if not, I get it.
I think that I can make some comments about the game. I think I don't have a tremendous amount to say, but I think that if you guys are willing to, I guess, hear that point and then return to the subject, I think that's fair, because I understand that you have a job to do and I have a job to do as part of being here, and the community to some degree would want to hear from me in terms of the result of the game. But I think the community also wants to hear from me or us in terms of our stance and maybe some things that we're going to look to do to try and continue to speak up about the situation. Because this is great, and it can be great to be on national TV and have this message, but it doesn't mean anything if we just completely forget about it and go home, and it's, you know, not a part of our lives to the point where we actually want to make a change. So, I mean, in terms of the game, a lot of positive things for sure. And at the end of the day, you know, people talk a lot about our youth, and I think I'd have to go and see, but at the end of the game, you have Aubrey, Amber, and Sonnet that are over the age of 25. I think that's it. And so when you don't have Kelly, Julia, Andy, Hatchie, some of these other people that are on the field who understand how to manage these situations better, there tends to be a learning curve. And unfortunately, that learning curve bit us tonight. I don't want that to take away from some of the tremendous stuff that we did, but we should absolutely be coming away with 3 points tonight. And so that's, it's unfortunate, but it's hopefully a very useful learning lesson.
To come back to the bigger issue at hand, you mentioned things in the community that you're interested in doing for yourself or as a team. I know that's been an increasing point for the club even before the tragedy in Texas. Just in a general perspective, what has come up so far? What are some of the things that you've I know it's only happened, it's only been a couple days, but what are some of the things that you're leaning towards as a group or that have been subject of discussion?
So again, for me personally, because I try very hard to raise issues, but then leave the players to sit on them and then bring them to us. I don't want to burden people when it's not on their time. If they want to come and talk to me about it, we are 100% open to that, and we make that known very often. But I want to also be respectful of the fact that there's different people in different situations. And Tanae Alexander lost her father to gun violence. And so I want to make sure, it's my job to make sure that there's a safe environment here. And that includes making sure that T's ready to talk about it on her own time. And I'm not forcing the issue with her and creating, bringing up a lot of trauma because it's clearly something that affected her very, very closely. And so we aren't dismissive of it. We aren't aloof about it, but I try very, very hard to make sure that there's that people are able to process it and deal with it and handle it and speak about it on a time where it's best suited for them. So beyond that, in terms of my own experiences, I think there's a thing to engaging just in your community in general, and that can start on a local level. I mean, I remember growing up and knowing all the neighbors that were around me, and that would lead to being more vigilant around a strange car that was in the neighborhood or something like that. And when I moved to LA, it was in a condo building, and there's probably 300 people who live there, and it was like a year and I didn't know any of my neighbors. And I was reading a book at the time, and it really struck me that I would be more vigilant, and I would have people who would watch my back if I got to know my neighbors. And then there became a different sense of ownership of, do I let this person in behind me that I don't know? Do I ask them who they are? Am I more, am I looking out for things surrounding my immediate community? And then it's, going out of your way to do things for other people, or, things like that. And I think that's just where it starts. It starts at home, and then it needs to spread out from there. And I don't know the specifics of the situation, but if everyone has that kind of vigilance around their community, I don't know if this person, this shooter in particular, had a group of friends around him that was able to say, hey man, like, you're not well, like, we need to get you into a different way. And I know, like, from my own upbringing, I always had people around me who, if I was being stupid, they would put me in line. And so I don't know, insofar as communities break down, that, it leads to this, but clearly it's bigger than just that. I don't I don't want to get caught in some of the tropes of, this is only a mental health issue, or it's only a gun issue, or it's only this or that. I think there's a lot of valid arguments that are out there, but I do think that there's something to be said for, you know, um, having a community that is extremely tight knit and is looking out for each other. And whether that's people at and around the school who are looking and, are saying, something seems off here, or if it's people, surrounding the shooter, and as I alluded to in terms of education, knowing what to do. How do you know what to do in a situation like that? Do you call the police? Who do you call? Do you call a professional? How do you handle someone that's in that situation, so you could potentially stave off an attack like this? But for me, it's just that it's trying to shore up things there, and then trying to spread out to the larger community. And so, I've talked to a decent amount of fans just in recent weeks, of just trying to connect and understand what are the things that you're facing, what are the things that you're dealing with, how is it that we can help, because you never know when you could be the impetus for change in someone else's life. You having a positive encounter with someone could have ripple effects down the line, and that would just strengthen the community at large. I don't know. I look at other things. I was watching a Stanley Tucci show about his travels in Italy, and there's this community in Rome, I think, where everyone's an outcast, but they came together to form a restaurant, and it meant that there's jobs for people, and it means that people have purpose in what they do, and it helps to abate some of the gang violence and crime and things like that. And just things like that, people coming together in a community and finding a central purpose, I think it has a positive impact on things. And it's I don't know. I don't profess to have all the answers, but I would certainly like to be a part of the change. And as some of our, I reached out to some of our fans on Twitter yesterday just to ask the question of, help me put more resources out there. Help me learn more about this. Help me understand what kind of things need to be highlighted, what kind of better conversations should be had, and things like that. And there were some really, really positive ones out there, because again, it's I'm in a different place in life than I think most people, and so I have to do my best to learn and adjust, so I can help to structure our community here just within the club to move forward in that sense. And so it's part of it. I know it's not it doesn't solely exist with me, but I need and I want more resources to reach out and talk to other people, and understand how they're dealing with it, or like I said, what needs to be done, or how can some of us come together. I know Natasha Cloud had spoken about some of the other sports organizations. I mean, we've got a pro sports team in here for nearly every sport, right? Tennis on through American football, and like, we can come together, we can use our platforms, we can be a positive voice for change in so many different ways. And I think you saw our players do that last year when they were dealing with all of the abuse and scandals within the NWSL. And I think it's time to certainly do that again. I know that there are some things planned from our end, but maybe they're going to be sped up in the timeline, so to speak, so that, something more impactful can happen a little bit faster.
That makes sense. Thanks, Kris. That's it for me. I appreciate you taking on a pretty difficult topic tonight.
Thank you, Kris. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next Wednesday night.
Is everyone done? Does Kyle have a question? I'm okay to stay in here. saying
Sorry,
hi.
Kyle, just saw your hand. Go
No,
ahead.
you're fine. Sorry, yeah, I threw it up a little late there. Hey, Kris, thanks for all your insights. I really appreciate it. And I know this question is way less important in the grand scheme of things. But how important was it for for Trinity to get to score tonight, and for her to kind of start getting her groove back again? As you guys go through the season here, how important is it for her to kind of be playing her best game?
I mean, I think it was huge because I think it's something that just gave her a lot of confidence. You could see it all over her face. We didn't utilize her enough tonight, and you see what kind of a game changer she can be. I mean, she was constantly dangerous, and I think the goal certainly played a big part in that. So I was super happy for her. It's one of the major positives from the game tonight.
All right. If there's no more questions for Kris, we will let him go, and we'll see you all Wednesday night.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Kris.
Thank you.